Good morning, everybody. Bob, Cam,
Morning,
and the
Chuck.
rest of the crew. How you guys doing today? Everybody have a good weekend? Good. Well, Amy let the cat out of the bag. We're going to talk some Clover stuff today. We're going to let Chad take the reins on that. Chad's our resident Clover expert. But I wanted to share before we got started an interesting story last week. I was one of our agent directors was working with this guy who's been struggling. You know, he's a brand new agent to the team. You know, he's running around out there. He's like, look, I've contacted everybody I know. I've contacted everybody I do business with, and stuff really hadn't shaken yet. And he's like, man, I'm getting frustrated. And I said, well, that's good. You know, frustration's a good thing because that's going to lead us to find answers. So I said, accept the frustration. We talked a while and, you know, kind of got our minds right. And then he went off and did something that I wouldn't have thought to do because I'm not real I'm kind of inept when it comes to social media. It's not my wheelhouse. I don't deal with that. And what he did is he actually put a posting on his Facebook. And I thought this was real interesting because he's going, look, I'm going to pull out all stops. That was kind of the end of our call. And he goes, so he'd gone off and he put a posting on Facebook. He says, look, here's what I'm doing, and I'm going to get a copy of it. I'm going to find out what he said in it. But he said, here's what I'm doing. I work with merchants. I help them do this, and he just put it out there. And I don't know how many followers he has or how many people are in his network on Facebook, but he wrote his first deal, and I think it's going to get finalized this week. He wrote his first deal last week, and it was I can't remember if it was a convenience store. It was some sort of retail outfit because somebody who was in his network on Facebook saw his posting and reached out to him. And I would have never thought of doing that because I'm not a big Facebook guy. So I thought it was interesting that he, you know, in what came to mind when I heard about this was, you know, if you let the world know what you're doing, the world can give you what you ask for. And you know, and imagine that, you know, obviously if I'm sure more of you guys are on Facebook than I am because I'm not even on there, but you know, however many people he had in his group, they have just as many in their groups. So I'll be interested to see how far he goes with that in what he's able to do. So, you know what, if you don't let your social world know what you're doing yet, if you haven't done that, you know, there are people, like he said, you know, in that situation, people are slipping through the cracks. He never thought to call this person, but he was friends with this person on Facebook. So, you know, there are things out there. I thought that was a real interesting story, and hats off to him for getting his first deal by sticking to it. But anyway, we'll get on to Clover. Clover's coming out with a lot of new things. You know, they're trying to stay in the cutting edge, and I think they're doing a really good job of the technology that's getting driven out there today in this industry. So, Chad, I'm going to turn the reins over to you and let you talk about what's Clover got coming out and what are they doing and what's that mean for us to close more business for these guys.
Perfect. How's everybody doing today?
Wonderful.
Good.
Well, fantastic. So I know some of you guys are aware, some aren't aware. We were invited to be part of a pilot program for First Data on their new Clover systems. And so the two new systems that are coming out are the Clover Mini and the Clover Mobile. And if you haven't seen them yet, you can go right onto your Google machine, www.clover.com. You'll be able to see what they look like. Basically, the big difference on the Mini is it's an all-in-one unit versus separate printer, and you know, the printer EMV stuff's all built into the unit itself. Still a touch screen and all of that stuff. And then the mobile is much more like a handheld mobile unit. It doesn't look exactly like the other mobile units out there because you still have like the touch screen and different things you can do. So to get an idea of what they look like, hop onto the website and look at them. But we can start selling them immediately, and meaning we can take orders for them today. The rest of the world has to wait another month before they'll be able to sell them. But you guys will be able to today. Now there's what the capabilities are and things like that, I'll get into. Basically, what you're looking at is there's two ways that we can sell these. We can sell these as a terminal replacement, where you don't have all the functionality of a Clover, all the software side, or we have the option to sell. They can upgrade to what they call the Pro, and when you upgrade to the Pro, the cost of the unit is the same. It's when you upgrade to the Pro, there's an additional monthly cost that they subscribe to for the Clover service. And what that does is it basically makes them the same as a full-blown Clover unit. All the same apps using the cloud, all of those things become capable. They can be hooked to kitchen printers, things like that. Is there anybody on the call that's already sold a Clover unit?
I have.
Okay, Brian.
Just me.
What's that?
No, nothing. Go ahead.
What type of establishment did you sell it to?
Bar, restaurant.
Okay.
Small one.
All right. So in essence, everything that Clover unit did for that bar and restaurant, you'll now be able to do with the Mini.
Let me ask you, Chad, real quick on the Mini. It's all in one unit, but obviously it doesn't have a cash drawer attached to it because that'd be awfully awkward.
You can add a cash drawer to it for additional cost.
Okay. So let's talk about what application would I go with just a Mini, just to replace a credit card terminal?
If you're going to do it as just a credit card terminal, you can do that. You're basically going to be ringing up stuff as you normally would. You don't have the same capabilities of adding in menus and things like that. And that's where basically they're offering it two ways. So with the Clover service and without the Clover service.
Okay, so without the Clover service, what would be an application where as an agent that I would look to do that? And why would I do that as opposed to the regular? Well, obviously, because I guess any application where I don't need the app. So let's say I own a retail store that maybe I have a whole different inventory system. I do everything else, but I just want this for, is it a looks thing? Or what? Why would I want this as opposed to an FD terminal?
Well, and you're getting all of that stuff in one. It really is, if you're doing it without the Pro package, it really is a terminal replacement, so to speak.
Right.
You've got your EMV and everything built into that one unit. And there are some, I guess there are, if you go onto the Clover.com, there are some of those differences that you can look up in there. I guess I see it more as a sales opportunity from the Clover end of it. One nice thing about it is if you sell that versus a terminal, basically you're going to lock out all of your competition.
Right, and then they can upgrade to a Pro later, right?
Right, so if they don't need the Pro at this point,
right,
you get the unit in there
later, right?
Yep, and you can upgrade to the Pro at any point. You just go right into the App Store, and you can get all that functionality of whether it's loading inventory, loading menu items in, all of the things that you may use a full-blown Clover for. You know, timesheets, employee management, inventory management. Connecting into your QuickBooks, all of those things that you can do on a full blown, you can add in later.
So really, the Mini Pro is just like the regular Clover. What would be the advantage of using that as opposed to regular Clover? Then is it just a size issue? What is it exactly?
Well, I think a size issue and then somewhat of a cost issue.
Okay.
The Mini unit itself is. Our cost on it is $425.
Oh, okay. So it's almost half.
Exactly.
Okay.
And they can still have cash drawers added to them. The nice thing is if you get that sold right away when say you're doing and somebody's not EMV compliant, hey, let's get you this Clover Mini. You can get it in there. It'll function just like a terminal and have all the EMV and everything they need.
Right.
And should they choose to go pro later, any of the add-ons that they do, or any of the 4 monthly fees that go into it, that adds to your back end of the profitability on the account. So
Right.
so you can
So a smaller merchant maybe starting out, this would be the way to go, or a merchant that doesn't need a lot of apps right now that might, looking down the road, if we obviously upsell them on the pro version later, that's additional monthly revenue for you guys. You can generate a little more residual income off the account. So I think it's a nice segue to step into that with the merchant. And, cost is a little bit more than a standard terminal, but the opportunities down the road, one being proprietary, so if they want to switch, they have to get a new terminal. Even if they're using FDR, it doesn't matter. They still have to get a new Mini. And, the back end revenue opportunities later is a good fit.
Right, and there's also a mobile too. So if you've got somebody that's going out and doing road shows or convention centers, events, things like that, where they're dragging an inventory with, there is a mobile unit too, where it'll have all the same functionality, and really, I was going to say, runs about the same cost as what the NURIT units were costing. And
What's
so
the cost on the mobile?
The mobile, it runs at $700, and it's $15 a month for that wireless service, just like a regular wireless unit.
Okay.
How much was that?
$700 for the mobile, and that's the kit. So it comes with the charging unit and a printer and everything.
And you said the Wi-Fi fee is what?
There is no Wi-Fi fee. If you connect to Wi-Fi, there's no cost. If you elect to connect to the cellular networks, it's the same as regular wireless cost of $15.
So this has Wi-Fi capabilities?
Right. So if you're say that you've got a restaurant and you want to swipe their cards right at the table,
right.
You can tie this into
Wi-Fi.
your regular Clover system and do checkouts right at the table, and never have to add that wireless capability or the 3G, 4G networks.
Right. So do they sign? Does the cardholder sign right on the screen?
I believe they do on. They have the capability on both the mobile and the Mini the same
Right.
way they do on the Clover.
On the Clover, okay. So they could do that right at the table. Were you going to ask something, Brian?
Yes, I was. The question being, I've got a merchant that's looking at a Clover system, and they're going to be doing outdoor festivals, like music festivals. Okay, go in there to sell their product, but there's no cell phone service, there's no internet. Will this thing just sit there and store transactions until they go back to their physical location?
Well, I know the Clover has store forward.
Yeah, I know the Clover does, but does this mobile one do the same thing?
Yeah, that's a good question.
And I was just talking with Clover support this morning. I didn't think to ask them that. I would assume that it does, because all your mobile terminals already do that.
Yeah.
And so anything and Clover itself does it. So
okay,
not
that's
taking
a, good
a huge
for
leap of faith, I would say it does.
For me to ask just before I go telling the merchant, hey, it'll do this.
Yeah.
Well,
Clover
you're
presale.
talking about a big account, aren't you, Brian? The festival this summer.
Yeah, that is a rather large account. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
we
find out.
We don't want to mess that one up.
No, we want to make sure that we get that one right. I'm looking at the site, and it's interesting. As I was listening to the conference call, then I logged on to Clover. It really does makes a lot more sense when you're looking at it. It's an interesting thing. Like Clover, it's kind of interesting, because I was thinking, okay, well, Clover Mini, really, like if you click on Clover Mini and you kind of scroll up and down the screen, it's interesting because it's like it really takes the place of a credit card terminal. What's the price on Clover Mini?
$425.
On the Mini.
Okay, so $425, and so it's a little bit more expensive than a a typical terminal, but it does EMV. It's got and you can put all the apps on it. Is that right?
Right. You can upgrade to Pro.
Yeah, but let's just say Clover Mini. So if you look at it, it's like really cool looking for one, and it gives you a whole hell of a lot more functionality than just a credit card terminal. So you can have just a credit card terminal, or you can have this Clover Mini, which does all the credit card terminal stuff, but also does EMV, and it looks like it's just a lot easier. It's like we're so used to working on like iPhones and screen and having icons to view things versus a terminal where you have, it's almost like the old-fashioned, you have to punch a button and know what the button does rather than being a graphical sort of interface. And there's barcodes and you can add gift card and you can add all these things to it, which seems like a heck of a lot easier add than it would on a terminal. Is that basically, so if I've never sold a Clover, like when Chad asked earlier, if I've never sold a Clover before, and I don't even know what the hell these things even are and what the big hoorah is about, that's kind of what it is, right? So if I go, well, the Clover Mini takes the place of a terminal and just makes things, it does credit cards, credit and debit, EMV, and it gives me the opportunity to use icons for adding apps like gift card and tracking where my clients are coming from and all these different things. There's the big difference, right, to start off with?
Yeah, certainly.
Okay. So then so if I want to go a little bit farther, then I can add a cash drawer, right? So it takes the place of my cash register. So that would be the regular Clover?
Right. You can add the cash drawer to the Mini as well. So.
Okay. So the Mini takes the place of a terminal and kind of jacks up and it looks cool. It takes the place of a terminal, makes it easier to use, adds more functionality, plus it looks cool. If I want to add a cash drawer, I can do that. Why would I want to go to the main Clover sort of unit?
Right.
And I think that's a good question. I think it's really dependent upon the business itself, because talking with the Clover support team this morning, once you add that Pro, you're turning that Mini into the same thing as a full-blown unit because it all runs on the cloud, and all of that stuff is stored on the cloud anyhow.
Okay, but if I want a Clover really takes, if I'm in most businesses when I go in and they have a POS, I mean like a computer-based system that does credit card processing and either communicates with the kitchen or deals with inventory management or whatever, but those typically cost, let's say, $10,000. Clover takes the place and makes it a hell of a lot easier for a third of that, right? So that's a big deal with Clover is that it takes the place of an old, bigger clunky system, and it operates with apps like we're all used to using today, and it looks really freaking cool, and it's a third the price. So that's really why you'd want Clover, right?
Right. I think that probably capabilities-wise, if you're looking at something where you have a ton of prehensils that you're hooking into it, scanners and those sorts of things, you're probably going to want to go to the full-blown because you can hook a lot more things into it.
Right. That makes sense. So if I'm just going out there to replace a credit card terminal with, let's say, something much cooler that has more, I'd go with the Clover Mini. But if they want something that they really want a bigger apparatus in there, to hook printers in and do all these things, or maybe even if I had these mobile units that is running around to tables, I might want to go with a more sturdy kind of base station, which is Clover, right?
Well, and my understanding is for like a quick serve restaurant and the bar side of it, you're fine with a Mini. When you start getting into managing, say that you have 20 tables in a restaurant, you need the capabilities of the full at that point. Okay,
so if I'm out selling this stuff today and I'm walking into a store and I go, I want to get these people on Clover because the big thing with Clover, it's two things. One is it's really freaking cool and people everybody who gets it loves it for the most part, right? And then two is that once they're on it, it's proprietary. They can't go switching off to the competition because even to FDR, if I understand correctly, they're locked in with us with this Clover. If they want to switch to somebody else with FDR, or if they want to switch to anybody else on the planet, they have to get all different equipment, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So there's two huge benefits. One for you, because you get a captive merchant. But the cool thing is we're doing the right thing for them. We're probably getting a better deal than they had before, and we're getting the really neat equipment. So then you've got choices within Clover if you just want to swap. Because I think sometimes, and tell me where this is wrong, but you approach a merchant with Clover and they're going, well, that's kind of a big deal. Do I really want to put all my stuff on this thing? Because maybe but you could ease into it with the Clover Mini in a snap, because they could get the functionality. Plus, they could always build it up and add a cash drawer and add more things. Unless of course you went into a restaurant with over 20 tables or whatever. And for them, the Mini's too many, right? So for some things, there's clearly a line where you go, man, Clover, you're going to dig it. But if you just want to swap out a terminal, Clover Mini's the way to go, right?
Yeah, and I think what I understand about some of the like larger restaurants that have like 6 servers running around and the bartender, the servers love it, the bartenders don't. So I don't know about I would definitely talk to your agent director if you're working on a big restaurant. Talk to them first about pitching the Clover to the merchant, because there's some questions we need to ask them how they operate to do that.
And Chad is on. Let's go ahead.
No, I'm just saying. I just want to make sure that we do that. But
yeah.
The small restaurant, I think, like Brian's situation that he sold it to, it's ideal for them.
How much does the Pro cost?
Yeah, Chad, what's the cost on the Pro?
Basically, it's the same unit. You're just adding the Clover service to it, and it's like $29-30 a month to add the cloud on the back end to put all of those apps on your Clover Minis or mobiles.
Okay, so $360 a year for the upgrade to the Pro. Basically, that's what it is.
Yeah, ballpark. So.
What are the questions that need to be asked of a merchant to be a really good candidate for this particular machine?
Well, I think starting out, the easy thing is if you're already replacing. I mean, and Cam, I know you've already been replacing a ton of non-EMV capable terminals.
Right.
And price points, you're right in that same ballpark. And so it's something where you can switch over and you can immediately start replacing somebody that's already running on a terminal without having to pre-qualify them for, hey, what are your inventory management needs, or what are some of your other timekeeping needs and things like that. And you can always build into that later as you're continuing to work with your client. You can start talking about upgrading them into Pro. You can immediately get the units out there, and they can upgrade to the Pro software side of things at any point.
How about the PIN card?
This is kind of easing them into the Pro, isn't it?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's great to ease them into it, and then it gives you an opportunity to come and do some add-on stuff later.
Exactly.
Because when you go in and go, okay, look, you're gonna get you this terminal, and it is our cost is. I mean, it does so much more, and it's a cool looking unit, and it does so much more than a regular credit card terminal, and but when you add the Pro piece to it up front, that's a lot for some of especially the smaller merchants. But this is a great, I think, way to segue them into it and get them on, because you want them using these apps. You want them on the Pro because you want them. You want them to become dependent on the apps. That's the realities of it, because they're less likely to seek out a new home when you have the apps that are doing all these extra things for them. And that obviously helps with attrition, right? So your merchants don't leave you. So you definitely want to get them to the Pro, I think, at some point, or at this terminal period, because like we mentioned before, you can't, if you switch or leave us at any point with that terminal, you got to buy a whole new one.
What Chad, what about the peripheral, the pin pad? Because on the EMV, do you have to add the pin pad onto the Mini?
No, in fact, on EMV at this point, everything is it's chip and signature. So at this point, it wouldn't be needed. It wouldn't be necessary. And the other side of things, if you've got somebody that needs to accept EBT, Clover and Clover Minis and mobiles will not do EBT. So your SNAP programs and food stamp programs, those are not good candidates at this point.
How about Apple Pay?
Yeah, Apple Pay is available.
Chad, I've got a question for you. This is Bob. What is the target industry for Clover? Restaurants?
I'd say retail, restaurant, and service. I don't know what the complete service capabilities are. And when I say service, what I'm getting at is places like salons and massage, different spa-type applications. That part, I'm not sure of the full capabilities yet on the Minis. But any place, I would say the majority of your businesses, if they're doing card swiped, the Mini is probably a good fit. If it's any place you've got a terminal in, it's probably a good option as long as they're doing card present transactions.
Okay.
Really, aside from the EBT and that kind of stuff, I can't think of any scenario where I wouldn't use the Mini. You know, if they've got a credit card terminal and that's how they're running today, that's what I would offer them.
Excuse me. What about a client that does probably 40 to 50% of their business work there too?
Excuse me, I missed the last part of that. 40 to 50% of their business what?
Heated, like it's a heating and cooling company, and their agents are out on the road, and they call in with a number, and then.
So you're saying half of their transactions they key enter, half of them are purchased in the showroom?
Right.
Yeah, you can still key in on a Clover unit. That's not a problem, and because half of the transactions are taking place in shop, when they're taking it in shop, they're sliding the card. Now, is that what you're saying? Well, and it's still a good candidate because you've got the EMV slot in it and the magnetic strip slot, so you'll still be able to take all of those transactions, be secure on that end, and you could still key in, you know, when the salesperson's out in the field and closing a deal, calling in with a card number, you could still do that.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
What's the best way to get some handout PR on these Clover units? So a merchant says, yeah, I need to become compliant with the EMV and what kind of terminal we're looking at. We can show them a picture and say, this is new and this is what it can do, and they've got something in their hands, something they can look at, or do we have to direct them to the web page?
Right now, I've got stuff on the regular Clover units. I don't have anything on the Mini or mobile. The web page is going to be your best source right now. Like I said at the beginning, we're part of a pilot program, so we're selling these before anyone else in the world gets their hands on them. Therefore, there's not a lot of stuff out there other than the website at clover.com.
So what you're saying too is probably you want to get into that merchant and get them sold. You know, we always say the magic is in you, not the materials. you might want to consider going in there and just actually selling them and moving on, rather than giving them a piece of material, letting them think about it forever until somebody else also a month from now has the ability to sell this and they buy it from them rather than you.
Well, and that's exactly right, John. You guys really have a unique opportunity that doesn't come along very often, where you're getting a full month's head start on the rest of the industry. So what you guys put out over the next month, nobody even has a chance to deal with. And that's not only locking up new merchants that you're talking to, but it's solidifying merchants you already have. And basically putting a fence up around them, so as everybody else that comes around, they're not going to be able to, get through that fence so easily.
Yeah, what I would do is, because I understand that they'll want to, even though you're selling them, they'll go, yeah, but what's it look like? Yeah, I want it. I get it. What's it look like? I would go to the site and I'd print off a picture and go, look, I don't even have material on this yet. I mean, no one else is able to offer you this. That's what I would do.
Okay. And your merchant's probably going to have internet access where they are. You can probably go to their office or their store or whatever, and they can click and you can show them.
Yeah, and I think there's there are a couple YouTube videos too, Chad, that they just released on the Mini and the Mobile.
Okay, those I have not seen yet, but definitely, I mean, and if you go into Clover.com, you can click on the hardware and you can go to the Mobile, the Mini, and the Clover Station. They have nice pictures of it in there. You scroll to the bottom, they've got really a comparison what an old terminal versus a Clover Mini, and what the capabilities are. So, things that you can't do on a normal unit, barcode and QR codes and things like that signature capture is built right into it, PIN debit's built right into it. So there's a lot of things, a lot of benefits that you get on it that you can't do on a terminal.
Right.
Is there any other?
Was that Cam?
Any other?
You spoke about cost, and if I heard correctly, the Clover Mini goes for $425, the Mobile goes for $700, and if you want cellular access, that's $15 per month. What's the Pro? The Pro cost is just the added-on software, which is $29 to $30 per month. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I'm brand new.
In comparison to the full-blown Clover unit, we've been doing those at $47.95 a month. So you're almost half the cost of a full-blown Clover unit if you are going Pro.
So, okay, I'm new to this, so I'm having to ask maybe some more basic questions that the rest of the callers don't know.
Go ahead.
At what point does so this is a one-time cost, the $425, the $700, and the like. That's a one-time cost for the merchant.
That's your cost, by the way. That's the cost of the equipment. That's your cost. That you make zero selling it at that. So that's our cost and your cost.
How does one figure what the markup ought to be?
Well, that's going to be merchant specific. It depends. It's kind of like you go to a car dealership. They start with a price, and then you and I would probably pay a different price at the car dealership. You know what I mean? So.
And that's the benefit of having an agent director, because, like you said, are you new to this as far as new as writing merchant accounts in general?
Yep.
Okay. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to back up a lot then and go, all right, when you go into this, you want to take the merchant tune-up sheet, and you want to go in and you want to follow good best practices. follow best practices, get in there, get it tied down, get the sheet filled out, get it to the agent director, and get a couple options. One of those options that's going to come back is going to be Clover, and then you're going to be able to talk about it, and you're going to make sense of it. When you ask, well, what should I do? And Chuck said, well, it depends, and it depends on information you're going to gather. We need some pieces of the puzzle to even understand what we're dealing with in the first place. So, what kind of business is it? So, based on the kind of business and the volume, and so if we save them $100 a month, whatever the case is, then you're going to go, okay, well then you're going to price there's some strategy that goes into the pricing and how you roll into it. So and the
my rule of thumb, but here's kind of my rule of thumb that I like to do is I like to go 1.5 times my cost. And that's kind of where I start. Like if they really pin me down, if before I get anywhere they pin me down, and they go, well, what's the if my cost on something's $400, I like to say that retail on it is going to be anywhere between $8.99 and $9.99. But let's look at your program, see what we have, see what kind of things I can do to get you into this. What I don't want to fall into, and one thing I always hate when we do calls like this, when we talk about equipment, is we're definitely not equipment salespeople. We sell a service program. We sell managing their account, running their account the most cost-effective way as possible. Because look, let's say you go to a merchant that goes, yeah, I'd really like to get it, and we look at their numbers, and we're only saving them. Let's say we save them $25 a month. I might sell it to that merchant at $5.99. But if I go into a merchant and I'm saving them, we had one the other day, we were saving the merchants $300 a month. Well, if I'm saving you $300 a month, I'm going to charge you $9.99. And how I get to that figure, maybe it's the cost of the equipment, maybe it's a consulting fee, an application fee, or programming fee, however I want to work that. You got to kind of base it on the scenario, because that's what this industry dictates. That's how you make enough money to live from one deal to the next deal, is that you got to have that balance in there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So it's just how this industry's worked for the last 20 years.
I think the leasing option on these is going to be really, really nice as well, because you can go in there and you can spread that cost out over a long period of time and still be pricing it out at where you see a lot of other companies leasing terminals at $59.95. You can come in at that level and make a great commission and really lock that merchant up for a long time.
Yeah.
I have a question. I hope you haven't answered it already. I had to stop for a second and take a call from a client. Chad, you had said if they add the Clover Mini to the regular Clover, that the agreement on the regular Clover is like $39, and if they add the Mini to it, it doesn't cost them any more. But if they want to go to the Pro, to have all the bells and whistles, that would be an additional $20 to $30. Is that right?
The Pro software is the same as what the Clover agreement is. So right now they've got it set up. If you're buying a full-blown Clover unit, basically it's a free upgrade to the Pro. You're getting the same thing.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, it does. Thank you.
And just out of curiosity, Chad, I don't know if we know this or not, but let's take a restaurant scenario where I got servers, they're running around, they're going to the tables, they want people to sign, and let's say I got five of the, it wouldn't be the minis, it'd be the other ones, right? The cellular
mobile.
ones. The mobile. Right. So the mobile would all work with my main Clover unit.
Correct.
5 different ones and.
Yeah, they would all connect on the same cloud.
Okay. So really
Chili's
wouldn't matter.
has got that at each table right now.
Right, yeah, I heard that. So, you figure, I could have, if it goes to the same cloud, it's no big deal. It's like having an iPad, a computer, and a cell phone all go into your cloud account. So I could have as many as I needed. Right? We still
exactly.
All right,
Yep.
somebody was back on the
Hey, Chad, I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
I was looking online while we were talking, and it mentions like the different types of cards it can take, and I guess I know you said this already, so this is kind of like a dumb question possibly, but it says Clover Mini's most advanced payment terminals. We accept a variety of payments, and of course you got the Apple Pay, EV, but then it says credit, debit, and EBT card swipes.
Which site are you on? Because on where I've got the terminal versus mini, I see the
I'm on
swipe.
Clover.com, and I'm on the mini.
Yeah, and I'm not seeing the EBT part of it yet. But you know what? Let's do this before you sell one to a place that's accepting EBT. Let's deal with. Just call me. We'll deal with.
No, I don't have one in particular right now, but I know you'd mentioned it doesn't take them, and then here it specifically says EBT card swipe, so I just wanted to...
Well, I know it's something they've been working on.
Okay.
I was just dealing with them on one last week, and on a full-blown unit, and they didn't have it, so...
Okay.
Like I said, if you've got one that's specific and has EBT, talk to your agent director. We've got a direct sales line into Clover where we can get stuff answered on the spot. And
so I guess I'd have to talk to you then.
It's tough to get a hold of me, but
my agent director.
Anytime any of you guys have a scenario where it sounds like it makes sense, get your agent director involved. We can get answers real quickly. I've tied the Clover support team in with merchants out in the field to get their questions answered so they could move forward. Whatever we have to do to get the thing closed for you, we'll do.
Is the EMV part working when it ships? Or
yes, so on the Clovers it is. Brian, you ran your EMV card on a Clover already, right? Brian still here?
Sorry about that, Chad. I was muted. So go ahead and say that again.
I said you've already run EMV chip cards on Clovers, correct?
On a Clover, yes, it does work. You just stick it right in the pin pad.
Okay, so on Clovers it is already functional.
Nice.
Any other
questions?
Hey, Chad, I have one. I'm on the site as well, and it says there's like a where to buy feature you could click on, and it provides a whole list of retail places, banks, and so on, that Sam's Club, restaurant depots, a whole bunch of places where you can actually buy this machine. How does that relate to our being kind of having a little priority and be able to present it? Normally, if you were to go to Wells Fargo Bank, say at any branch, and say I'm interested in purchasing this unit, I mean, how does that work in terms of having a merchant services company in between as a middleman to get this machine to a merchant? I guess unless the merchant really knows about Clover, quote unquote, they really wouldn't have any questions. I mean, how does that work with other retail establishments like banks and so on offering the machines?
Let me answer that for you real quick. Out of FDR is the largest processor in the world. They touch, I think I've heard that out of all the credit card transactions on the planet, they touch like 52% of all the transactions done. I mean, so they're ginormous. And when the deregulation of the banking industry that happened in the 80s allowed non-banking companies the ability to sell banking services, kind of like you used to have to go to a home savings and mortgage to get a mortgage, right? Or a home savings loan. Now, you have lenders that can offer that. Out of all the credit card merchant services accounts that are sold in our country, 80% of those accounts come through what they call ISO channels, which is us. So yeah, when you go there, you're going to see that, you can go to a bank and get set up to accept credit cards, but that only accounts for 20% 80% of all the merchants that are accepting credit cards out there, 80% of it comes from ISOs like us. And there was us and maybe a handful of other selected ISOs that were able to run the pilot on this because they know that 80% of their business comes through channels like us. So yeah, I mean they're releasing it to their banking channels and their retail channels like a Costco or whatever. But through the ISO channels, it's us and about a handful of other ISOs that are able to offer this.
Yeah.
So that's why you see that.
Yeah, they probably, if it has anything to do with proprietary, situations there, Chuck, where, they have to offer it. It can't be exclusively through us. In other words, if they didn't provide it as an option, then it could be construed as, some kind of practices that are not, legal, I guess is the word.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, no, I know what you mean by that. But and I'm sure that's the case. I mean, you got to realize, FDR is a processor. And there's still a bank involved. When we set up a merchant to accept credit cards, someone's got to pay that merchant the money until the issuing bank pays. And it's Wells Fargo. So, they're in business bed together. They've got the processor and then they have the settlement bank. So you're going to see it there. And but that's okay because it's kind of like if you take your car to get worked on and you go to a dealership. A dealership does more than just brakes. But if you go to a brake specialist, oftentimes it costs you less at a brake specialist, and the brake specialist knows a lot more about it than the guy at the dealership. So, that's really what an ISO is. An ISO is a merchant services specialist. This is what we do. And that's why so much of the business comes through these channels, because we're out there focusing every day on getting merchant accounts. When you go to a retail bank like a Wells Fargo or B of A or whomever else, they're trying to, that's not where they make their money. They're trying to sell you, checking accounts, loans is where they make their money. So this is the right channel for a merchant. Go to someone that does this for a living. This is what we do. This is all we do. We're very, very good at it. and I can guarantee you can go to, 99 out of 100 Wells Fargos and start a Clover conversation, and they're going to be completely lost. Yeah, because it's not.
And when you think about it too, Chuck, most merchants don't have a clue. I mean, when you present your services, prospects to a merchant, well, they automatically assume that you're going to provide the equipment for them to do the processing. They're not going to go out independent of what you're doing and say, hey, maybe I can find that machine at a better price and still hook up with you. It's not something that typically happens in the industry. Yeah.
And if you got a Clover through the bank, it's because you went in and asked for it. It's not because they offered it to you or did the right discovery on the like our merchant discovery sheet that we use, the tune-up sheet. Banks don't do that. We do that, so we're going to make better recommendations, and especially when you start getting into the pro version or the regular version, you start looking at all the apps that come along with it. The banker would have no clue. So we're going to be much, much farther ahead of the game in that arena because we're more exposed to it. So good question.
Right.
I'm sure you're not the only one that had that, so I appreciate you asking.
Well, trying to get a little proactive and trying to anticipate something that may happen, because it's better than being blindsided.
Yeah, no, I hear you. We all get enough of that already. Yeah. So good question. Any other questions before we go? No. You know what? Again, guys, you have a really unique opportunity here to offer this. Like I said, only a handful of us get to offer this on the pilot program. So I would definitely get this out there, expose your clients to it, work with them, make the right recommendation. We expect you to call us a lot until we really get our handle on what's available to the merchant in this deal. So if there aren't any other questions, next week, same time, same place. Chad, thank you. Everybody, thank you for the questions. We appreciate it. Let's we got a lot of May left. Let's go out there. Let's make sure we have a really, really solid May. So have a great week, everybody.